The Warriors did what we thought was unthinkable this season, a comeback from over 20 points down. Last night, Jimmy cooked.
I think the idea he's like the exact opposite player of me. It's funny. He shoots 16 threes, he shot one, he got to the free throw line a lot. He's dominating the paint, I'm dominating outside the perimeter.
With a heroic shooting performance from Steph and a huge physically dominant performance from Jimmy Butler, does Steph finally have another chef? Let's review. So in last night's game, Jimmy Butler looked pretty immediately comfortable within the Warriors offense. And I think we want to touch on four main areas where he looked comfortable. The first being playmaking with Jimmy Butler, the second being Steph Jimmy screening actions. Then let's look into his and ones and how his physicality plays into his fit in the Warriors offense. Right off the bat, though, looking at playmaking, Jimmy was running Warriors actions. It's either going to start off with this horn set right here that's going to end up being a Spain pick and roll for Buddy Hield with Jimmy Butler as the initiator. So they start off in horns, which are these two high screens. It ends up with Steph coming to get the pitch from Jimmy, pitching it back. And what happens in Spain pick and rolls is that Draymond initially sets this high screen for Jimmy Butler, and then Buddy, as the second screener in the action, is going to screen for the screener, which is Draymond. So allowing Draymond to cut into this space. And then as the screener for the screener in Spain, usually that screener is going to pop out and look for an open three, which is exactly what happens as Buddy pump fakes and gets that three. And it's just nice to see Jimmy get immediately involved in the Warriors offense. Another benefit of Jimmy Butler is that he abuses mismatches more so than Andrew Wiggins did. You can see he has this initial mismatch with Kobe White in the post here. And because of that, this defender, Nikola Vucevic, is going to have to make a decision. When we play someone like Quentin Post, the benefit of having a stretch five is that he can shoot threes. But the benefit of having Jimmy Butler is that now it's not so easy for this weak side defender to decide whether to stay closer and attached to a stretch five or to come help on Jimmy Butler. There's a pretty difficult scoring threat for a guy like Kobe White. And you can see that Vucevic comes to help with Kobe White, which ultimately leaves Quentin Post wide open. It allows him to drain that three. So it's just nice to see Jimmy forcing those decisions right off the bat, forcing defenses to make maybe suboptimal decisions, especially with Quentin Post as your five. In this next play, we're going to look at some Steph Jimmy screening actions. Right off the bat, you can see that Steph came up here to set this high screen. Jimmy rejects that screen and is just going to go straight to the basket for this and one. Really nice to see Steph and Jimmy getting involved immediately. Obviously, the benefit of Steph Curry is that he's a shooting threat that usually draws two defenders or at least draws a man to stay pretty directly attached, like face guarding. And Jimmy, as a more threatening scoring threat than Andrew Wiggins, can take advantage of that. Again, here, we're going to go Steph and Jimmy in this off-ball screening action. Jimmy's going to fake up and get Josh Giddey on the other side of Steph Curry. And because it's Steph Curry, Desunu is not going to leave him to help on Jimmy, who is very clearly now just going to cut into wide open space. And because Giddey did a pretty poor job screen navigating there, it's just a really easy alley-oop to Jimmy Butler. Again, let's watch more Steph and Jimmy. You can see right here, another Steph Jimmy high ball screen. This time it's going to flow into Jimmy pitching it to Buddy Hield. He then comes to set this quick screen on Kobe White and then gets into this open space, which ultimately allows Buddy to get a three. Again, Jimmy and Steph, even though they don't play the same role, even though they don't necessarily provide the same scoring threats, right? Like Jimmy's not as good of a three-point shooter as Steph. Ultimately, they both require defensive attention, which is more than the Warriors have had in recent years. Let's watch again how Jimmy Butler works in a post split. You guys all know the post split. It's a pretty common Warriors action. They're going to try and flow into it very quickly. Draymond Green is going to try and get into this post area to receive this entry pass, which comes from Jimmy Butler. And as you know how the post split usually goes, the man passing from the elbow comes to set this elbow screen for a shooter to run off. It's just nice to see that Jimmy Butler is immediately involved in bread and butter Warriors actions. As you can see, he comes to immediately set this screen and actually ends up drawing a foul, which is really good for the Warriors. The Warriors haven't had offensive engines that can draw fouls like Jimmy Butler has. Now, in yet another action, I want to take a look at how Steph and Jimmy work together again, but also look at Jimmy's physicality. So Jimmy comes to set this screen for Steph. He ends up getting this switch on the Huerter, and you can see that Steph is going to immediately throw the ball up for Jimmy. Now, while Jimmy and Huerter are relatively the same size, Jimmy's just so much more physical and imposing than Kevin Huerter. Not only does he get this ball, but he ends up putting a pretty tough shot against Buzelis up. And that's a really nice asset to have. Now we can move more into and ones and see how the Warriors were working with this all night. They're really fond of this Jimmy over the top pass that usually comes from like Draymond or Steph. They went to it a lot. Draymond missed a few. Um, but this wouldn't be possible without Jimmy Butler's overt physicality. You can see here he gets another pass from Buzelis and puts that up. That's another foul. And here's another one. Draymond recognizes that Butler has an advantage against Kevin Huerter, as he did against Kevin Huerter in the play with Steph earlier. And he's just going to throw this ball up again because he knows Jimmy can get to it. And whether or not Jimmy makes the shot, he's probably going to draw a foul. So he makes the pass, and Jimmy puts up a crazy circus shot and gets the foul against Kevin Huerter. It's a really nice set of over-the-top passes from Draymond and Steph, but it also shows you that Jimmy's just an and-one threat that the Warriors haven't had before. Something else to look out for is just physicality from Jimmy Butler in general. Look how he's bullying Buzelis in the post here. Buzelis actually falls down. Jimmy not only gets that, but gets the and one. Again, whenever you have a player like Butler who can abuse even similar sized or smaller defenders in the post a lot more than, say, Andrew Wiggins was willing to, there's a lot more opportunities you have to create offense in the inside, which can obviously lead to more shots on the outside. Let's look at how he does that right here with this screening action. You can see that Jimmy's trying to get into positioning in the post. Again, as we've covered before, he's in sort of a mismatch against Kobe White, which again forces the Bulls to make a decision here. Are they going to provide weak side help, or are they going to hug in the corner to try and prevent an open three-point shooter? And because it's Jimmy Butler now, they're usually going to provide that weak side help. You can see them creeping over to provide this sort of double team in the strong side post, which leaves Pajemski as he's holding his arms right here, signaling he's wide open, available for this skip pass from Moses Moody, and ultimately gets him a wide open three. And part of that is thanks to Jimmy's physicality. Now, Jimmy and Steph played a great game last night. While he's still finding his place in the offense, it's clear that Jimmy provides this secondary shot creation upside that the Warriors have lacked since KD left. He's physically imposing. He's a willing playmaker and distributor, and he fits really well in Warriors actions, and he's great at drawing fouls. The Warriors fans shouldn't overreact. No matter what Jimmy is, the Warriors are still 500, and there's still an intense sprint to playoffs. But maybe, just maybe, Jimmy Butler III can get. Let us know if you agree.